Mac resided alone. A sprawling, silent mansion, his only companion. Each room echoed with emptiness, a void he couldn't fill. Days bled into nights, marked only by the shifting shadows. He wandered through dusty halls, a captive of his own solitude. The weight of silence pressed down, suffocating. He sought solace in fleeting moments, a flicker of warmth in the vast coldness. But the silence always returned, a constant reminder of what he'd lost, what he could never reclaim. Dusk settled over the overgrown garden. Max stood at the window, a drink forgotten in his hand. His gaze fixed on a distant figure, still as a statue. A man in a white mask, featureless and unsettling. It stood at the edge of the trees, where shadows whispered secrets. Mac watched, a knot of unease tightening in his gut. He told himself it was nothing, a trick of the fading light. But as darkness deepened, the figure remained, watching, waiting. Night fell. The mansion settled into an uneasy silence. Mac found himself drawn back to the window, a morbid curiosity overcoming him. He scanned the garden, searching. At first, nothing. Just the rustle of wind through the trees, a symphony of shadows. Then he saw it. The figure, standing in the same spot, the white mask gleaming in the moonlight. Mac's breath hitched. His pulse quickened. It hadn't moved, not an inch. It simply stood there, a silent sentinel in the encroaching darkness. The next night and the next, the figure returned. Each time a fraction closer to the house, the distance shrinking, the tension growing. Mac's sleep became a battlefield of nightmares. He started seeing the mask everywhere. In the reflection of windows, the play of light on the wall, even in the swirling steam of his coffee. His world, once defined by emptiness, was now filled with the mask's haunting presence. He tried to rationalize it. A local prankster? A figment of his isolation? But deep down, a primal fear took root. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. Max stood at the edge of the garden, his breath catching in his throat. He'd finally yielded to the morbid compulsion that had, consumed his thoughts. He had to see it up close, to understand. The figure was nearer now, close enough to make out the subtle cracks in the white mask. Cracks that seemed to whisper of something ancient and malevolent. It stood with an unnerving stillness, its gaze fixed on Mac. And in that moment, as their eyes met across the chasm of the overgrown lawn, Mac realized the terrifying truth. The figure wasn't looking at him. It was looking through him, as if he were already gone. Mac's days became consumed by the figure. He'd sit by the window, sketchbook in hand, attempting to capture the unsettling stillness. Each stroke of charcoal felt inadequate, failing to translate the chilling aura. He drew the stark white mask, trying to imbue it with the menace he felt radiating from the garden. But on paper, it was just an object, devoid of the terrifying emptiness that seemed to consume everything around it. He flipped through the pages, each sketch a testament to his descent into an abyss of fear. His hand trembled. How could something so still inspire such unease? How could something so empty feel so heavy? Sleep offered no escape. His dreams were haunted by the mask, its blank stare following him through the labyrinthine corridors of his mind. He would wake in a cold sweat, the feeling of being watched clinging to him like a shroud. He tried to distract himself, reading, music, even the mundane chores of maintaining the sprawling mansion. But the silence was always there, punctuated by the imagined sound of footsteps in the hall, a soft whisper at the edge of his hearing. He was losing his grip on reality, the line between what was real and what was in his mind blurring with each passing hour. Was he going mad? Or was the figure seeping into his world, poisoning his sanity with its silent dread? The mansion, once a sanctuary of solitude, became a prison of paranoia. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind sent a jolt of fear through him. He felt hunted, stalked by something he couldn't see, couldn't understand. The silence was no longer empty. It was filled with whispers, faint and menacing, weaving around him like cobwebs. They spoke his name, their voices cold and hollow, echoing from the depths of the mansion's shadowed corners. He would spin around, heart pounding, only to find himself alone. But the whispers remained, a constant reminder that he was not alone, that something was watching, waiting for him to let down his guard. One evening, as dusk painted the sky in hues of blood orange and bruised purple, Max saw it. A flicker of movement at the edge of the woods. The figure. It was closer than ever before, almost close enough to touch. He stumbled back from the window, his mind reeling. This was madness. It couldn't be real. Yet there it was, a tangible manifestation of his deepest fears. A crack had appeared in the fabric of his reality, and through it, something monstrous was staring back. He had to do something. He couldn't just stand by and let it consume him. But what? Confront it? Run? Every option felt futile, a dead end in a maze of terror. The question gnawed at him, a relentless ache in his mind. Confrontation or madness? To stay silent was to surrender to the suffocating grip of fear, but to approach the figure, to acknowledge its presence, felt like stepping into the jaws of the abyss. The mask, it was the key. He had to see what was behind it. Maybe then he could understand. Maybe then the fear would recede. Or maybe he would find something far more terrifying. He took a shaky breath, his heart a drumbeat against his ribs. He had made his choice. He would confront his fear. He would face the figure in the garden and pray that whatever lay beneath the mask, it wouldn't be the end of him. Each night, the figure inched closer, not with the urgency of a hunter, but with the patient, deliberate movement of a glacier. Inexorable, unstoppable. Max's world shrank, the mansion's walls closing in like a coffin. He tried to break free. He paced the halls, a caged animal seeking an escape, but the figure's silent progress followed him, a specter in the periphery of his vision, always there. Sleep offered no respite. Nightmares bled into his waking hours, the line between reality and delusion dissolving like sand through his fingers. He was losing himself, drowning in a sea of fear and paranoia. He tried to rationalize. He told himself it was just a man, a trespasser, a prankster, anything to quell the rising tide of terror. But deep down, he knew this was something different, something wrong. One night, driven to the brink, Mac flung open a window and screamed into the darkness. He cursed the figure, begged it to leave him in peace. His voice echoed through the empty garden, swallowed by the indifferent night. The figure didn't flinch. It didn't acknowledge his pleas. It simply stood there, a silent, white-masked specter, its stillness a deafening rebuke. Max slammed the window shut, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He was utterly alone. Mirrors became his tormentors. He saw the figure reflected in their depths, superimposed over his own image. A chilling reminder that he was no longer alone, not even within the confines of his own mind. One night, staring into the antique mirror in his bedroom, Max swore the reflection moved. Not the figure, but the reflection of himself. The eyes in the mirror blinked, a slow, deliberate blink that sent shivers crawling down his spine. He recoiled, his breath catching in his throat. When he looked again, the reflection was normal. His own terrified face stared back at him. But the doubt lingered, a venomous seed planted in his mind. Was he losing his sanity? Or was the figure already inside, worming its way into his very being? The nightly visits continued. The figure drew closer, its presence a suffocating weight pressing down on Max's chest. He was trapped in a waking nightmare, the boundaries between his fears and reality blurring with each passing moment. The silence, once oppressive, was now deafening. The mansion, once a refuge, was now a stage for his torment. The figure had won. It had broken him. Mac was a prisoner in his own home, his mind teetering on the precipice of madness. He was out of options. He couldn't run. He couldn't hide. He could only wait for the inevitable moment when the figure finally reached the house, when the nightmare became real. And as he stared out the window, his heart a lead weight in his chest, Mac realized with chilling certainty that the figure wasn't there to hurt him. It was there to claim him. A profound stillness had settled over the world. Max stood at the threshold, the mansion's door ajar behind him. He could feel the night air, cool and damp against his skin. It felt, alien after days confined within the suffocating presence of the house. He took a step, his foot sinking into the overgrown grass. The sound was, honestly, unnaturally loud in the silence. Each rustle of leaves, each chirp of a distant cricket seemed amplified, echoing the frantic beat of his heart. He didn't look back. He couldn't bear to see the mansion recede, to acknowledge the possibility that he might never cross its threshold again. He had made his choice. He would confront the figure, face the emptiness that haunted him. The air grew colder as he approached the edge of the garden. The scent of damp earth and decaying leaves filled his nostrils, a cloying perfume that spoke of neglect and decay. He could sense the figure's presence now, a palpable weight in the air. He moved slowly, each step a monumental effort. His legs felt heavy, as if wading through thick mud. His gaze remained fixed on the figure, its white mask gleaming faintly in the moonlight, a beacon in the sea of shadows. With each step, the details of the figure sharpened. He could make out the subtle texture of the mask, the way it seemed to absorb the moonlight, reflecting nothing back. It stood with an unnerving stillness, a puppet master waiting for its final act to begin. Max stopped just a few feet from the figure. He could feel its stillness as a physical presence, a wall of silence pressing against him. He raised his hand, his fingers trembling slightly, and reached out towards the mask. The world seemed to hold its breath. The rustling leaves quieted. The distant chirping of crickets ceased. Even the air felt heavy, as if the very atmosphere itself were bracing for what was to come. His fingers brushed against the cool porcelain surface. It felt, well, strangely lifeless, like touching a statue. There was no warmth, no breath, no hint of the being that should have been behind it. And in that moment, Mac understood. The emptiness wasn't behind the mask. The emptiness was all there was. He pulled the mask away. For a heartbeat, there was nothing. No face, no darkness, just an empty space where a head should have been. An emptiness so profound it seemed to suck the air from Mac's lungs. His mind recoiled, unable to process the sight. His fingers, still gripping the mask, went numb. The world tilted, a silent scream building in his chest. And then he saw it, a new figure. standing at the edge of the woods, closer than the last. The white mask glinted in the moonlight, a silent, knowing smile. The void, it seemed, was staring back.